Good morning, everyone. Last week, we covered up until here. So if I go to the top of the list, so we covered color psychology last week and few other parts from the UX process as well. And after the break, we did some Figma practicals. So today I'm going to do color theory, typography, and all these things in the presentation: typography, style guide, UX laws, and creating wireframes. And at the end of the session, we are going to go through some Figma practicals as well. I gave you some exercise to do. So if you had any problems during working on that problem, you can ask after the break when we do the Figma practicals. All right. So if we go back to what we already covered, we did what is UX process and methods, and how to apply the UX design process practically in the designs you do. What is empathy and why is it so important in design thinking? We in that step we mentioned about the things that we can do to build empathy, carrying out user interviews and maybe giving a questionnaires and so on. And then we did user interviews and competitor analysis, which is also a valuable step in UX design process to understand your end users and as well as understand where your product is standing in the competition. Then we discuss about creating personas, where we discuss what are the requirements in a basic persona layout, the picture and the motto or a quote that the user tell during the interview process, and some uh, background or the personality or demography information, and also users' frustrations and motivation should be displayed in this persona. And in the end, we created, discuss about creating user flows. User flows also are really important when it comes to UX. Actually, by having a clear user flow, the designers or the UX researchers or even the developers can understand what are the expectations, uh, and how can we implement a solution based on the user's user flow. All right. So the color psychology we discussed. Let's start off with the color theory today. Actually, color theory also, as I remember, we already finished that part. So let's start off with the gradients. Okay, using gradients, designers can, let's go through what we can do by using gradients. We can make bold statements. Gradients help create something new and unexpected. Even a tiny element such as a logo can be exciting if you apply a gradient to it. For an example, on your right hand side, the Instagram logo gradient gives the icon more depth and dimension. So if it is only using a plain color, one color, it don't add this kind of a depth or the dimension. So users of Instagram actually, when compared into so many users, majority of users are uh, in between ages of teenagers and also up to 30 or 35. So they are trying to catch and get attention from these users. So that is why they are using gradient, and the color combination is also really playful. So people using Instagram application uh, get a bold statement when they launch in the application, and even when we try to upload a picture or like someone's photo, they have this kind of a gradient attached to every icon or every interaction. So they're trying to give this bold statement through their logo and the color combination by using these gradients. Then we can empathize certain elements. Take a look at the homepage example below. Text message and call to action button plays a key role in this layout. And gradient background visually prioritize the elements. So if you take a look at here, you can see the background is a gradient and the picture is on the right hand side and the text is on the left hand side. By having a gradient, it improves the readability of this text part and also the description and also the call to action button. Users can also clearly see the graphic or whatever the image that they have put in the website. So that is a good use of a gradient. Okay, there are basic types of gradients. Number one is the linear gradient. To create a linear gradient, you need to specify two colors or two tints of the one color. So let's head back to Figma. So in Figma, how we can create a gradient is we first have to create a frame or a box. And then in here we have fill color. So go inside the fill and we have gradient up here. So we are going to select the first color. Let's say I'm going to select blue color as my first color, and the second color, I have to click on this, and then again I have to select the second color. So my second color is this. So this is the linear gradient. So you can see that there's a horizontal line. So that is why we are calling it a linear. So we can change the direction if we want, but it is still a linear gradient because it spreading through a horizontal or a vertical line, straight line. All right, then we have radial gradients. Radial gradients are similar to linear gradients, except they radiate out from a central point. As a designer, you can dictate where the central point should be and specify the size of the gradient. So if I want to create a gradient again, so what I'm going to do is I will go to Figma again, and then from here, I'm going to select radial. So it is starting from a central point or a pivot point and spread across your design. So the first color I will select a different color, this one. So this is the first color. And the second color I want to select is this one. So this is a radial gradient. So it has a starting point or a center point, which is right here, right now. And you can manipulate it. You can change the size of your gradient by customizing it by using these elements. You can change the direction if you like, and you can add more colors to it if you want, and so on. So if you want to add another color, you can add by doing so. So you can add many colors you like. So let's go back to our original gradient. So this is a linear gradient. This is a radial gradient because it is in a shape of a circle. Next, we have a conic gradient. It is similar to radial gradient. Both are circular and use the center of the element as the source point for color stops. However, for a radial gradient, the color stops emerge from the center of the circle, while a conic gradient places color stops around the circle. So let's go back to Figma. So I will rename this as radial. This is radial. To create another one, this is conic, but in Figma it is called angular. Angular. So let's okay. If I select that one with the similar colors I already have, I'm going to delete this color. You can see that it is not uh, spreading from a center point. So it has different color in a central point, but it has this kind of a option to select whatever the color stops, where you should stop one color, where you should start another color. So you have that control as well. So you can use that in some cases as well, the conic gradient. All right, next one. Those are the combinations that we have. And in Figma, we have diamond shape as well. So if I create another one, let's call it a diamond. It will give you a diamond shape and it will give you the controls as well. You can increase the height from one side and you can make it uniform from both sides. And you can change the colors and you can play around and create a good visual representation that works with your design. All right, those are the basic 4 gradients that we use in UX designing. Actually, these are the 3 basic ones, but Figma give you this option. Most of the other Photoshop or Illustrator have similar options as well. So it is something that you can use in any other applications when you do designs. Okay, these are some tips for creating impressive gradient. Number 1, don't choose colors randomly. The red to green gradients look dirty. So if I take this color wheel to my Figma, okay, if I want to select colors randomly, let's say I'm going to select first color from here and the second color, randomly selecting maybe this color. So if you compare these two, the first one looks pleasing to your eyes as well. So the color combinations in the second one is not that good. So if when you are trying to combine colors for your gradients, make sure to combine colors that flowing or colors that match each other. Don't select colors randomly. So that is the first tip. It is better to use either analog colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, or shades of the same color, shades of the blue. So you can use colors next to each other in the color wheel or shades of the color that you already selected. If you selected blue color, you can use lighter shade in the other part of your gradient. Next one is create smooth transition. The transition between colors should be really smooth. Ideally, the user shouldn't notice the place where one color flows to another. So in this example, we can differentiate where one color stops and where other color is starting. But in this example, take a look at the following example. You can notice a line that separates two colors. This line creates the impression of an abrupt transition. So if I head back to Figma, this color right here, the transition is smooth. So if I do something like this, if I drag it somewhere here, you can see the color change in location. It is right here. So it is not a good practice when you are designing. Your transitions should be smooth, so the user won't notice where one color stops and the other color starts. So make sure to keep that on mind as well. Number 3, by using colors, we can convey emotion or mood. Color evokes emotional responses. We can use this color property to connect with the audience on a deeper level. So this kind of a color combination, the orange and the yellow, bright, bold colors stir positive feelings. So when we talk about color psychology, we mentioned that the orange color or the yellow color, which is coming from the sunlight, it is combining with positive emotions. And also orange color is something we can use to convey positive emotions to your users. So you can combine these colors and combine different emotions in your color palette when you do the designs as well. So in this example below, this airline is using a combination of these colors as a gradient. The dominant color is the orange color, whereas they are using white color gradient to make this one stand out, the graphic and the text that they put on top. Okay, so the deep tones bring calm. So if you create deep tone gradients, it will give calm feeling to your users. So they will be able to look into your screens for more time rather than giving them contrasting colors or colors, lighter colors in your gradients. So in here, this example also, they are using blue color gradient with uh, darker blue and a lighter blue accent. So you can see it is direction is from left to right. It is a horizontal or a linear gradient that they are using in this particular UI. And another good practice is to try to avoid acid colors. Acid in its original context refer to a bitter taste. Acid colors rarely work well in user interfaces because they demand too much attention. So if you don't have solid design skills, it's safer to avoid using them in your UI, especially when you design a gradient. So when you try to design a gradient, if it is not a specific case, let's say for an example, we need to create a brand advertisement or a UI for a brand that already using this kind of acid colors, especially the DJs or music bands or any other concert or something. In that case, you can use acid colors, but you have to make sure you don't give so much attention. Like when acid color is there, users' attention will go to that particular part of the screen, especially if you have some text on top or something like that. Make sure to improve the readability by playing around with the acid colors. It has a good practice. You can avoid using acid colors altogether if it is not a specific case, specific requirement. Okay. Use gradient to direct the eye to a certain part of the screen. You can use a gradient to create a focal points. It's especially helpful for smaller elements such as call to action buttons. So if I give you an example, in Stripe website, they have this kind of animated gradient. So what they're trying to do is when you visiting a website, the first part of the screen that you rest your eye on is this particular left hand side. So they want users to give their attention to this particular part, and that is why they have this gradient here. You can see that gradient's focal point, the color changing point is somewhere around here, so underneath the text. So in that way they can get more attention to the areas that they want to get attention. So the main text is right here, and they have description and the call to action button and an image as well. So that is also a good use of a gradient in UI and UX. So in this example here, we have a gradient, the orange color gradient, yeah, they are using to call to action buttons and for these progress bars as well. So that is also another way to get users eye contact. So direct their eye contact to a certain part of the screen. The next one, don't forget about color contrast. No matter how beautiful your design is, you shouldn't forget about accessibility. Always check the color contrast ratio. So if I create a button, let's say I'm going to create a button right here. Increase the font size to something you can see. Up. I'm going to put it inside a frame. Then fill color. Let's use a gradient. maybe this one. Out. Okay, you can see that this button is readable. So if I create another button and use some other text color, maybe something like this, it is not that readable when comparing to the one on the left hand side. So you always have to make sure to improve the readability. So if you are using a gradient, make sure to use a contrasting color for your foreground elements. In this case, we have a background of a button and a foreground element, either text. So you have to make sure you use contrasting colors in order to make it stand out, or users to will be able to read it. Otherwise, it is really hard to read with this kind of a background and the foreground color. So in the first week, we talked about the people with accessibility issues. So some people won't be able to differentiate colors in your screens. So you have to make sure you add colors. So select colors based on the color contrast ratio, and accessibility recommendation should be there as well in your designs. Okay, these are some tools that you can use to create or uh, play around with gradients. So number one is this one. So in here we can create different colors by using this particular design. So you can change colors by clicking on this button. So it will give you different designs. So if you want to go to another gradient that matches your user expectations and the things you gathered from your feedback, you can go to this library and select a design you like and use it in your design. So it will give you this first hex code where we can copy and put it in our design. So let's say I'm going to change this button's color to that gradient. The first color, I'm going to paste it right here. And the second color, this one, we can paste it here. So that way we can copy the gradient from that gradient library to do our designs. You can get the JPEG and some other options as well. You can add your own gradient, or you can get CSS code if you're into coding as well. All right, this website is not working, it seems. I will try to find the new link and update the link on Google Classroom. All right, so we talked about gradients and the color theory, color psychology and everything. So if you have any questions regarding what we covered during last weeks, you can ask now. Let's talk about dark mode. What exactly is a dark mode first? A dark mode is a night-friendly color theme that mainly focuses on using dimmed gray colors for surface and UI elements. Darker colors reflect less light while still providing a great reading experience. As a design pattern, a dark mode is usually living across the user interface as a toggle. The dark mode is designed to be supplemental to the system's default or light theme. So if I go to system settings from here and go to display settings, the appearance setting, so it will have in your devices also, even it is a phone or a desktop or even a tablet, we have this setting. So number one is light theme. So light theme will appear, and we have dark theme and we have auto. So it is changing based on the time of the day. So if it is night time, it will show it in a dark theme. If it is a daytime, it will show in a light color theme. So I prefer dark color theme, so I will switch on the dark color mode. So we can use this in websites as well. So if I go to this website right here, so if we add media queries to change dark mode and light mode based on users uh, computer settings. So if I switch on light mode right here, the website colors will also change to light mode. And if I select dark mode, it will go back to dark mode again. So you can apply the same thing in your designs when you do designs. So as a good practice, we always start off by designing the light mode first. So we are not going to design the dark mode first because it can limit you. So you the colors you can select are limited when you have a darker background. And also you when you already experience, you even from the childhood, you always design on white color background. So it will give you more creativity when you have white color background. So as a good practice in UX industry, we always start off with the light mode, and after we create the light mode, we can change the colors to match dark mode version as well. So next one, dark theme is a good marketing move for making your UI stand out among similar brands or products. The deep, heavy backgrounds can become a perfect addition to your brand visuals. So one story I can tell you is when Spotify launched their first application. The dominant music application actually was the Apple Music, but the for Spotify UI, they launched the application by default dark UI. So from the very beginning, they have dark color background and the green color gradient that they already have right now even. So after launching, the users like their UI more than anything. Even they have a very good streaming experience, user experience, and everything. But when it comes to their selling point, their UI was something that users really liked. So they use dark theme to good effect to uh, give a competition to their competitors in the market. Next one, dark mode as a feature can help reduce eye strain. When operating your product, especially if your product is heavy with text, the dark mode can enhance your users' retention and focus. So online readers, or let's say Amazon Kindle, or even you use Amazon Kindle or any other application in your phone to read books, if you have a dark color background with gray color or light color text, it will give you less eye strain. So if you, let's say in the night time when you try to read a book or something, or even try to use a social media application, your theme or the you have selected the light color theme, so it will give you eye strain, and it will also not good for health as well. So make sure the designer, as designers, you have to make sure you give these controls to your users and they can use your application for longer hours if it is uh, consist of reading or something like that. Then we have dark mode can potentially save your phone energy. So when having dark mode on, we have pixels in our screens. So for an example, in mobile screen, let's say we have millions of pixels. If you switch on your light mode, all these pixels, almost all of these pixels has to emit, and it will consume more energy. But if you have dark color background, only the text or the only the components that have light color design is emitting. So if I show you an example, so in here I have this one. So I have dark design color. So the all these pixels don't have to emit because it is having so many dark color screens. The colors for this text, uh, it is emitting, so because it is a lighter color, so it is saving energy. So if I change the color of this to some light color theme, so whole screen pixels should emit, so it will drain your batteries in your devices as well. So it is a good strategy if you want to uh, use ask your users to use your application for longer hours, and you can save their phone battery and energy as well. Dark mode consumes six times less power on your screen by emitting less light, and as a result can prolong your applied span and usage time. So as I mentioned earlier, healthier to read against dark surfaces. So if I revisit what we already discussed, when you try to read something in a lighter screen in night time, it will give you eye strains. You can't focus for a long time, and also the white color light that emitting from your phones are not good for your health as well. So it is healthy to read against dark surfaces. Okay, this is another thing that you should consider when using dark color themes in your designs. Avoid or limit white or pure black colors. You can use pure black, #000, that is the hex code for black color, as a background color for dark mode. So in this example, on your left-hand side, they are using #FFF as background color and white color as their text color. And on right-hand side, they are using some gray color text. So it will give more readability, and users can differentiate from the heading text and the paragraph text and so on. And it will uh, give some energy, like it will save energy as well, because in order to brighten up this white color, uh, the computer or a screen have to consume more energy, whereas this one will consume less energy. Okay, next one is brand your dark color. To make your dark mode unique, use a much darker version of your primary brand color as the surface. So let's say your branding color is something blue color. So in order to make it stand out or maintain some similarity between your brand and the colors that you are choosing, you can use darker version of that blue color as your dark background color. So in that way, you can convey the message that you are using the same brand, and also the titles and the paragraph text, you can choose colors based on the colors that you already have in your branding guidelines. So that is another way that you can use dark color to brand your designs. And another action that you should use when you choosing or using dark color, reduce color saturation. Avoid fully saturated colors in dark mode. So if you use this kind of a blue color or this green color, you can see that you can properly see the boundary between this first button element and the background element, and even here. So that is because the blue color and the green color that they are using in this particular scenario, the left hand side, it is saturated colors, fully saturated. And whereas on right hand side, you can see the background or the boundary of this particular color. It is actually not that visible and pixelated because of the low resolution, but you can see that there's a difference between these two when I'm zooming out, and even this green color right here. Okay, and we can use dark color to communicate depth. So in dark color combinations, this is the way that we can communicate depth. Use a scale of lighter colors to translate the elevation. Avoid using shadows in dark mode. So you normally, let's say I'm going to design something for light mode and dark mode. So opening a phone, let's use Android large. This is my light mode, and this is my dark mode. Okay, now let's create our dark light mode design first. Let's use this as my image. I'm first going to create the image right here, then paste the image on top of that, increase the image size. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some text. You can use some plugins in Figma if you already installed to create dummy text like lorem ipsum. So right now I'm going to use the traditional way and copy some text from here. Say this is my heading. I'm going to create a paragraph as well. So this is my paragraph. And I have a call to action button as well. So let's create a call to action button. Let's say read more. 16 pixels maybe. And then I'm going to put it inside a frame to make it responsive and create a button. Let's call it a button. Change the color. Use a gradient because we already I'm going to use these two colors. And shade the font color to white color to improve the readability because black color text is not that readable with the background I have selected. And add some border radius as well. Let's add 15. So this is my layout, the button and the heading text. Let's change the okay, now I'm going to do something with auto layout to align these elements. So I select all these three layouts in my button and I want to put them inside a frame. So I'm going to put them inside a frame. The first one is image placeholder, what we have on top right here, where I pasted my image. And one down below is this one, which is, let's say, content. Okay, I'm going to switch on auto content. So it will look like this. And I want them to be, it to be a vertical layout like this. And then my heading to be on top and all the other text below that. I'm going to align it to my frame like this. Okay, let's add some padding, 30 pixels on x-axis and again 30 on y-axis as well. So from here, I'm going to select hub contents because it will give me more freedom to work with my design. Okay, this one I want to change it. Let's say this is my design. I have an image and then a heading and then paragraph and call to action button as well. Okay, so now this is the light mode. And I'm going to create the dark mode version of this one here. This, I'm going to copy this by selecting Ctrl+D, which I can use to duplicate elements in Figma. Dark mode. And in order to create a dark mode, I want to change the fill color to black color or something lighter than black. Let's say this is background color 07. This is the X code. And now I have to change my font colors as well. So this color and this color. So the heading color can be white color. And this one I can select some gray color to it. But our button is still visible in the dark color background as well. So I'm going to use the same thing. Okay. And in order to convey depth in our design, let's say I have two buttons here. And I'm going to put them in one line. To do that, I will select both of these buttons and then again frame selection. And I'm going to name it. You actually have to rename them with some meaningful names, because when you prefer to it later on, it will be easier for you to understand what these buttons are about. Okay, number one can be in, and let's say read more as the second one. So I'm going to copy the same thing and paste it here in my other design as well. Okay, now we have two buttons. So right here, when you now I want to put this my paragraph inside some text as well. So let's say 30 pixels right here, and then 30 pixels right here. Okay, so let's add some effects to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it inside a frame first. Frame, name it as paragraph, and then let's add an effect. Fill color. Fill color will be something you can differentiate from white color. So it will be easier for you to see what I'm trying to do here. So 10 pixels, or 10 pixels the padding for the text, and then add some drop shadow. So you can see that the drop shadow is visible in white color theme. Now, if I copy the same thing to my right hand side layout, right here, you can see the drop shadow is not visible. So that is because the drop shadow we have added in darker color, but the background also in my dark design is darker color. So in order to convey depth, so by adding this drop down or drop shadow, what we're trying to achieve is we are trying to convey depth between our elements we are using in our design. So in darker mode, what we can do is, because we can't use this drop shadow, we are trying to add some stroke around our design. So your stroke can be different color. So let's change the background color of this one as well to this color, and the text color to white color. So the lighter color border, if you are using, it will convey more depth. Whereas if you are using some darker color border color like this, it will convey less depth. So you can use these colors when you're designing. So if I show you an example, Let's take this one. So in here, we have this lower elevation. It don't have that much of a color, like contrast ratio is very minimal. So lighter version of the gray color has been used as the border. In here, we have increased the brightness of that particular color to show a much more elevation in our design. Whereas on top, we have the topmost element where we use something more lighter in comparing to all other colors, which will give higher elevation in our designs. So that is how you can use dark mode and how you can communicate depth inside dark mode. So in light mode, we can use drop shadow, but in dark mode, we have to use this kind of borders. Okay, next, ensure your dark mode contrast. Dark mode, just as the light, should meet the minimum required WCAG standards to ensure all text is legible with enough contrast. You can use plugins to check contrast design right in place. So if your text is not readable, if it doesn't have any like practical or designed standard contrast ratio, it is not a good user experience. So you have to make sure you meet WCAG standards with your light mode as well as your dark mode as well. So you can install plugins in Figma to check your ratios uh, when you try to design, or after you do the design, you can upload these to some cloud services and check your contrast ratios, and they will give you recommendations on how you can improve your color scheme and what is the best color based on the background that you have selected. So make sure to think about your color contrast ratio as well. Next one, design light mode first. While bringing your designs from light to dark mode, keep all the visual cues in place. Don't ignore or remove some colors for the sake of dark theme, not to confuse users. So these are some plugins that you can use to convert your light mode designs to dark mode designs. So number one is appearance. So what these do is when we select colors for our light color designs, so if I do it without a plugin, so this have different colors. The our fill color is white color, and then we have text color with this particular black color and the gradients and everything. So they allow you to replace these color selection colors in the plugin itself. So you can replace these colors based on the color scheme that you need in your dark mode. So that is what these plugins are for. Okay, in this example right here, we have light mode and dark mode. So light 900 is used to represent this navigation bar on top. And in the dark version, they are using gray 700 right here. The background color, gray 100, and here gray 900, which is darker than other two colors that they are using in their design. And the accent color is blue, and in right hand side, the darker version, they are using accent color as this color because they don't want to uh, get so much attention to this particular part. And also, if you put more colors in your screen, it will affect your design aesthetic in dark design theme as well. So that is a good practice when you're doing designs for both light and dark mode. Start off light mode first and select colors based on your user requirements, and then move on to dark mode design and do the design there. Okay. Use base colors to design dark mode. To make it predictable, turning your light themed UI to dark side, use a set of base or neutral colors with the same transparency values from very start of your project. So before you move on with your dark theme design and the light theme design, you have to decide on what are the colors that you are using. So if you are using white color as your prominent color or the most contrasting color in your light color design, this is the color they have selected for the dark color, the base colors. And they have selected this color, and you can see the opacity of the second color is reduced by 20% and it is 80, and this one by 30%, and this one by 40%, and this one by 50. So that is the way that we have to select on our colors and use these colors. This is the primary color and this is the selection of the colors. So you have to make sure you select these colors and use this uh, by reducing opacity of the main color that you have selected. So if we go to Tailwind, also they have this kind of a color scheme. So if I go to neutral right here, so this is 950 and 900, you can see that the contrast or the uh, color darkness is increasing when you go from left to right. This is the lightest color, whereas this is the darkest color. And they have so many color combinations that you can use in your designs as well. Okay. Next one, don't overuse dark mode. If you are making a product for Mac or Windows users, it's good to adapt your product theme to sync with users' current theme automatically. This can help users to feel at home, making a great first impression. So let's say for an example, I prefer using dark mode in my computer. So all the application right here, and if I open my coding application and everything is in dark color. So if I try to launch a website, let's say uh, trying to launch a website, that website is in light color. So that is not a good user experience because users are preferring to have everything in his screen in dark color, and when you are giving it in a light color, it is not a good user experience. So you should put like system default in your designs, so where users can navigate seamlessly between any designs, any website that they are visiting. So if they switched on dark mode in their design or a system, the website you are creating should get that input from the system settings. We can write queries in our website and then show the website in the similar color that you have users have selected in their system settings. So in system I have dark mode, that is why this is showing dark mode. So that is the default for this light mode and dark mode toggle. So if I switched on dark mode, light mode from my computer, so it will display in light mode. So that is a good practice when we working on dark mode themes. Okay, these are some guidelines or the resources that you can use to learn more about dark theme and the dark mode. So this is material design, Google's design system. So these are the usage and the principles and the color combinations, accents, and everything is there. So it conserve energy and enhance accessibility if you are following these guidelines and use the colors accordingly. Next we have, so if you go to Dribble and look for the term dark UI, it will give you designs with dark color themes. So you can get design inspirations from them and do your dark theme designs when you are working on a project. Figma tokens. So this plugin is actually help you to customize and adapt your design system to multiple themes. So it allows you to change colors. Give me 1 second. It will allow you to change the primary colors that you have selected here, and it will create few themes based on these colors that you have already selected. Contrast, a plugin to help check the contrast ratio of background and foreground elements. So if you install this plugin and if you selected this particular element, it will on right hand side, it will show the contrast ratio between elements. So if it is not a good contrast ratio, they will give recommendations as well, how you can improve your design to increase the readability and the accessibility. All right, that is all about dark mode. Now, next topic we are going to cover is typography. Any questions so far? Samidu? How about Fatima? Okay. Uh, Isuru, any questions? Okay, cool. Let's move on with typography. Typography is a design discipline that involves the use of typefaces and the organization of those typefaces to create readable, usable, and ideally user-friendly interfaces or experiences. So as a UI and UX designer, especially when it comes to UI, where you have to design the things that you have researched and drawn wireframes, in visual designing, typography is something that really important. So if I tell you a story, when Macintosh launched their first computer, and during the same time, the Windows also launched their computer as well. But when comparing to the UI, the typography in Windows, Apple computer, the Macintosh computer had better typography. So that is one selling point of those computers. So from the launching day up until now, Apple have good typography. But right now, the Android and also the Windows have good typography as well. But during the time they launched their first product, they had good typography. If you listen to the speech that Steve Jobs has given in Stanford University, he mentioned how he learned about different typography and typefaces, and how he applied this knowledge that he learned when they creating the first Macintosh computer, and how it became a successful product by having a good UI and typography. And then typography, uh, also typeface, also known as a font family. The word typeface comes from a physical print and refers to the faces of physical letter blocks. A typeface is composed of fonts. So if I, uh, so these are some of the widely used, mostly used fonts we found on websites. I think you already have idea about some of these fonts. Some of these are even in Microsoft Word or pre-installed in Microsoft systems, Windows systems, and some of them are installed in Apple and Android devices as well. So number one free source that you can get typography or the fonts is Google Fonts. So if we go to Google Fonts, you have different fonts here. So now these are in the order of most trending fonts. So if we select most popular, it will give you most popular fonts: Roboto, Open Sans, uh, Poppins, Lato, and so on. And then this you can arrange them by order as well. So if I go right here, we have filters. So if you want to type something, it will give you text in that color. So if you can select based on that color. So we have filter to uh, select a language, what the language you prefer, and the technology. If you need a variable font or do you need a color font, you can select from that as well. And we have decorative stroke. We have serif, slab serif, and sans serif. So most of the time when we are designing a UI, we are using sans serif in our design. So it is easy to read and it has improved readability when comparing to other decorative text. So serif is something like this. It is also improved readability, but when comparing to sans serif, uh, as research shows, it has less readability. Sans serif has more readability among these three. Slab series is something like this. You can use it to create headlines or display text in your designs. And let's say, okay, we can classify text as well by display fonts. So display fonts can be used to create headings or something like that. And whereas handwritten fonts you can use in special cases especially when you try to design something decorative UI. Space is something like this. It's you can use it to website. If you are a coder, if you into programming, when you try to create your portfolio, you can use this kind of a fonts to showcase your design. So these are some symbols that Google are providing. And we can change based on number of styles as well, because some fonts, if I open Roboto, it has number of styles. So these are the styles: thin 100, thin italic, and so on. So you can select a font with more types as well. You have type tester, and all the text or the characters will be displayed here. And about license, if you want to get the font, what you can do is you can select the font that you want. Let's say I want this font in my design, selected that font, and these are the variations that they provide in that particular font, and click on get font, and it will give you the embedded code where you can use in your website. So this is the code. You can copy code in and paste in your HTML file, or you can get the CSS code and paste it in your CSS style. So you can see iOS, Flutter, all the variations are there. And apart from that, you can download the font as well. So you can download it by clicking in here. So if you want to install this font in your local computer to do your design, you can install it. Most of the time, you don't have to install the fonts in Figma itself, because almost all of these Google fonts are pre-installed in Figma. So if you want to install a font in Figma, what you can do is, let's say something not in Google Fonts, you can go to fonts like Adobe Typekit or even free website like the font and download a font from here. Let's say I want to download this one, and you already know how to install a font in your computer. You can double click and install it to your fonts library, and then when you relaunch your Figma application, it will display here. So you can use that font in your designs as well. Okay. Moving on, fonts are specific weights within the typeface. You choose a typeface, you use a font. If you will select Georgia as your typeface, then Georgia bold, italic, and regular would be your fonts. So in this example here, if I select Roboto as my typeface, these are the fonts it consists of: thin 100 italic, light, medium 500, and everything are the fonts inside this particular typeface, the Roboto typeface. And the character. Character is an individual element, most commonly a single letter, number over punctuation mark. So if I go in here, so these are the characters that this font or a typeface is consist of. So that is an individual element in your typeface or a typography that you are using in your design. Weight, height, and size. This refers to the thickness, length, and overall size of the typeface. You can experiment with different weights and sizes and use the variation judiciously on your interface to break the monotony on a long passages of text, or to direct attention to specific elements. So you can manipulate your text. So right here, I have added weight, height, and size as a bold text, because I want you to put more attention in there. And we can use normal text here, or you can use italic text or underlined text to get users' attention to certain parts of your design or the typeface. Okay, now in Figma, if I do changes to this particular design I've already done, you can access typefaces by clicking on this text button. So click on this text button and it will give you text input. So if you want to add a paragraph, what we can do is don't just click it on your design, click the type box and drag it and like click in and drag like this. So it will give you a paragraph. So you can have the paragraph, whatever the text that you want in your paragraph, and it will don't change the size. So if you just type right here, it will type forever horizontally. So, but if you put a paragraph or if you draw a box like this, it will only go beyond, don't go beyond its boundaries. So it will be within that particular design that you have drawn. So make sure to apply that in your designs as well, even in a heading or the paragraph that you are trying to design. So let's copy some text from somewhere. This is my text. So in Figma, we have text controls. We can change the heading color, heading size by changing the size of these fonts. And then this is the font that I have selected. You can select a different font as well. And then it have variations, different fonts inside the typeface. So the typeface is inter, and these are the fonts inside this typeface. So I'm going to make the heading bold. And this is my subheading. So I'm going to make it semi-bold. This is a link. Let's change the color of that to something else. Maybe this color. And this is my paragraph. So paragraph text is this. So in the paragraph, you can change the line height. So line height is the height between these two lines of text. So if I change it to 100%, it will look like this. If I change it to 300%, you can see the height between these two lines and the whole text altogether is changing. So as a good practice, keep it in 100. 100%. Say if we auto function here, okay. Please use auto, not 100%. If you want Figma to automatically decide the ideal line height for your text. Okay, next we have letter spacing. So you can increase the space, the word horizontal space between letters by changing this value. So it should be 0%, but based on your requirement, you can change the length or the gap between two characters in your design. Next, we have paragraph spacing. So paragraph spacing, if I create another paragraph right here, another one right here, and select these paragraphs, change the value, it will give more paragraph spacing if you increase the value. And then we have auto width, which will take the width automatically depending on the whatever the content you have. And then we have auto height, so it won't affect the width of your design, but it will take auto height. And then we have finally fixed size, so this is not changing, so it is fixed size. Okay, now like in word processor also we have options to align our text. So if I try to align this one, this whole paragraph, this is left align, this is center align, and this is right align. And if I go inside, we have justify as well. So this text is justified. And in here, we have align top. So right now we are using align top because this heading is at topmost position it can be. And align middle is it is changing the size. So if I show another example, let's say okay, so now this is the text I have. So if I top, it will look like this. paste something like this. Align middle, will align it in the middle of the element, and align bottom will bring it to the bottom of the element that you have created. All right, let's go back to this one. Then we have this more option right here. If I click on this, it has basic resizing element that we already have in here, and all these alignments, and we have decorations. So you can underline your text if you like, or strike through your text like this. And also you can change the case. If I select this one, all the text will be uppercase. If I select this, everything will be lowercase, I'm sorry. And this one is title case, and so on. Okay. You can use vertical trim, especially for the letters like G or anything like P, where it has some part beneath the line of your text. You can use this to align those with the baseline. So this is standard, and compared to baseline is this one. So make sure to use standard to standard if you need more readability in your designs. And you can create a list as well by selecting whatever the elements that you need in the list, and you can create unordered list with dots, or ordered list with numbers added. So paragraph spacing, we talked about it earlier, and if you need truncate text, you can use this one. So truncate text is something like this. Let's say you have an element which you can use, and you don't have much of a height to put all the content there. So in that way, if I create it like this, if I don't have my truncate text on, it will show all the text, even though it goes overflow my design. But if you have truncate text on, the text will stop from the division end, and it will add these kind of three dots to demonstrate that there is more text that you can read. So that is the use of truncate text. You can use this kind of a design when you try to put content or the main content that you have in your website. For an example, blog content on your home page. So you're not going to show the whole article, only the extract of that will be there. So you can use that kind of a text in your design. All right. Next, talked about letter spacing, or tracking the distance between the widest point of each character. Tracking specifically refers to the uniform increase or decrease in horizontal space between characters. So that is this one. And then alignment refers to the how text is positioned. There are four main alignments: left, right, centered, and justified. It's for left, center, right, and justified. Okay. Now we have some typography principles. So when you select typography, you have to make sure you follow these principles in order to create a good product by selecting a good typography based on your user requirements. Number one, keep the number of fonts used at a minimum. Using more than three different fonts, make a website look unstructured and unprofessional. Keep in mind that too many type sizes and styles at once can also break any layout. So for an example, if you use so many fonts in your website, you won't be able to match font faces. And let's say for an example, this one right here, the heading is in different font face, whereas and they have added so many designs, so many typefaces. So as a good practice, please always use maximum 2 typefaces in your design. So you can use one typeface for heading and some matching typeface for paragraph and other body text as well. But normally, one typeface is enough because it has so many fonts inside. You can use bold for your headings, whereas you can use normal text for your paragraphs and so on. So ideally, one one typeface is enough, but in special occasions, if you really need some different font for your heading, you can add another font face for headings as well. So apart from the design aesthetic, if you use more fonts in your designs, especially when you try to code a website, let's say you use up to 4 fonts in your design. So when you implement Google fonts in here, you have to make 4 different requests because we are using fonts from another server. You have to make 4 different requests to Google to download the fonts. Each time users visiting your website, he has to wait till all the fonts will be downloaded to his own server, the client server, and display in his design in website. So make sure to use only 1 to 2 fonts. So it will increase your website speed as well, and it will give you more control in designs as well. Okay. Try to use standard fonts. Font embedding services like Google Web Fonts or Typekit from Adobe have a lot of interesting fonts that can give you design something new, fresh, and unexpected. So what can go wrong? So if you new into UI and UX, or if you new into website development or design, please always try to use Google Fonts because Typekit is a premium version, so you have to buy their subscription to use that. But Google Fonts have so many variations, and they are adding a number of fonts daily to their library as well. And it is the #1 source where you can download fonts. And if you try to use a custom font, if you go visit a website like the font and try to use this kind of a font, and maybe you have to self-host this font in your website, which will reduce the loading speed of your website as well if you try to launch a website. It is a good practice, and it will increase your speed of your website if you're using Google Fonts, because Google servers are everywhere and you can easily access them and download rather than hosting fonts in your own server. Okay, and number 2, actually, this approach has one serious problem. Interesting fonts can distract users from reading. Users can spend time thinking about the fonts that designers use rather than reading the text. So if you use a playful font, if you use so many font phases in your design, not readable fonts, but to get users' attention, and they can get distracted and they are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not reading the content or anything, and they are just thinking about the font that you have chosen, if it is a designing font or something like that. So you have to make sure that you choose your font wisely based on the scenario. If it is a website with a news website or a blog website, you have need users to read it. So you have to select a readable font and use it wisely with different combinations. The bold text, the italic text, underline text, and you can use them. The next principle is limit line length. Having the right amount of characters on each line is key to the readability of your text. It shouldn't be your design that dictates the width of the text. It should also be a matter of legibility. So as users, when we try to read some paragraph, we have limited memory. So there's a limit that we can keep in our cognitive memory. So if you give them so many text on reading, so if let's say ideally if we put something around 7 words in our one line, it is the ideal cognitive memory that users can keep in his working memory for one go. So if you put so many text on your so many characters or so many words in your design in one line of a text, it will be hard for users to memorize and follow up what they read already. So make sure to limit your line length in your text as well. There are recommended line length for your text, so we are going to discuss them as well. You should have around 60 characters per line. if you want a good reading experience. Having the right amount of characters on each line is key to the readability of your text. So as I mentioned, if you are using a desktop device or something like that, ideally it should be 60 characters per line. If you go more than 60 characters, it will negatively affect your readability. Users will find it hard to read and memorize what they read. So they might have to read one line and go again and read the thing that they read earlier. So that is not a good practice. And then another thing that, let's say you are not using 60 characters, you are using 20 characters or something like that in your design. So it will affect your designs. Like we have very limited space to deal with in our designs. So if you are not using the whole space that you already have, it will you are not using your screen space or the white space wisely. We call it the screen real estate. If you have like 340 pixels length and you're only using 20 characters, let's say 100 pixels, it is not a good practice, because you are wasting so much of white space in your screen. So having the right amount of characters on each line key to the readability, and also having the right amount of characters will save your white space. You can use your screens to good effect to convey the message to your users. So as you can see here, this one, the 40 or 60 is the ideal range for your paragraphs or the character count. So this one is too narrow. It is not using the white space or the screen real estate properly. And here we have ideal range, something around 40 to 60. And the too wide is something around 90, but always make sure to put your text something around 40 to 60. So it will improve the readability of your text, as well as it will ease up the understanding or the comprehension of your users when they try to read it as well. Okay, for mobile devices, you should go for 30 to 40 characters per line. Below is an example of two sites we on a mobile device. The first one uses 50 to 75 characters per line, optimum number of characters per line for print and desktop, while the second one uses the optimal 30 to 40 characters. So as you can see, the readability of the left-hand side screenshot is not that good. It is not mobile optimized as well. You have to zoom in and zoom out and read the paragraphs. So it is not a good user experience if you want to read that particular website. But on the Washington Post website on the right-hand side, they are optimizing for mobile devices, and they are using ideal characters for each of these horizontal lines. So it is giving good readability for their users. All right. Choose a typeface that works well in various sizes. Users will access your sites from devices with different screen sizes and resolutions. Most user interfaces require text elements of various sizes, button copy, label fields, selection headers, etc. So let's say I'm visiting a website like this. So this is my normal desktop element. Some users might be using mobile phones to access websites. So in this website right here, they are changing the font size based on the uh, device that I'm using. So let's say I'm going to use a responsive device, and this is my font size. So let's say this is a TV, smart TV or something, and you're trying to launch this particular website, uh, and it will increase the font size based on the screen pixels or the screen resolution that you are using or navigating the website with. It's important to choose a typeface that works well in multiple sizes and weights to maintain readability and usability in every size. Okay, so the button size and the field labels, selection headers, paragraphs, and everything should be changed based on the screen size or the screen resolution. Okay, we have a tool called typescale.com. Apart from Google, we can use that one as well. In type scale, what you can do is you can select a font from here. Let's say I'm selecting Opins as my font, and it will give you, if you set the base size, I'm going to set 14 pixel as my base size. So that is the paragraph size for my text. And then it will give you all the sizes. This is the heading 6 size, heading 5, and this is the largest heading size, H1. And you can use that and you can see how it will look like by following these designs on right hand side as well. So that is one place that you can use to select a typeface and select the different sizes of your typefaces as variables when you're trying to do designs. So I put this one in Google Classroom already as extra resource. So use this tool when you selecting a typography and the font sizes for your design element. It will give you a hierarchy for your designs if you select the base size. Okay, next one, avoid all caps. All cap text, meaning text with all the letters capitalized, is fine in the context that don't involve reading, such as acronyms or logos. But when your message involves reading, don't force your users to read all caps text. All capital print greatly retards the speed of scanning and reading in comparison with lowercase type. So you can see it is really hard to read this bold text when compared to one on top. So that one also comes with our past experience. We are so used to read books, and most of these books have lowercase or the sentence case text. So when you try to put all capital text, it is something new, and you have to put your attention to each and every font to read it carefully. So make sure to put lowercase or the sentence case text when you design your elements or components with the typography. Next one, don't minimize spacing between lines. In typography, we have a special term for the spacing between two lines, leading or line height. By increasing the leading, you increase the vertical white space between lines of text, generally improving readability in exchange for your screen real estate. So as I mentioned, so if you increase the line height of your text, it is readable when compared to this one, but it will sacrifice your white space or the screen real estate. So you should have put so many other elements in here, but you have wasted your white space by putting unnecessary line height to your text. By increasing the leading, you increase the vertical white space. Okay. As a rule, leading should be about 30%, more than the character height for good readability. So this one is good. This is too much wasting white space. And this is not wasting white space, but it is hard to read. So these two are not good. Always make sure to use this. But in Figma, you can use this auto function to uh, give it a like optimum value for your designs. Properly using white space between paragraphs has been proven to increase comprehension up to 20%, as pointed out by Dmitry Fediev. So when you properly put paragraph space, like if you have paragraph space like this and this one don't have a paragraph space, but if you properly add white spaces between your paragraph, and it will increase the readability as this research suggests. The skill of using white space lies in providing your users with a digestible amount of content, then stripping away extraneous details. So as I mentioned, we can only keep up to certain number of elements in our working memory. So if you go exceed that, it won't be a good user experience. And if you even go below that, we are wasting our white space in our design. So make sure to be in the ideal range and follow these principles that use UX practitioners follow. So in here also, you can see the left-hand side text. it is taking very less space. So in the real estate wise, it is okay, but the readability is lacking. So you can't differentiate between the heading, subheading, and the paragraph. And on right hand side, it is very readable when comparing to one on the left. Okay, next one, make sure you have sufficient color contrast. So there is the lines of the text do not meet the color contrast ratio recommendations and are difficult to read against background colors. And one on the bottom, these lines of text meet the color contrast ratio recommendations and are easy to read against their background colors. So this white color background and the lighter gray text is not readable, whereas even this dark color text and darker gray is not readable. So you always have to make sure you test your designs and select background and foreground colors and make sure those are contrasting and readable as well. Even if it is button or a text paragraph or production area or anything, it should be readable. In this website, apart from Google Fonts or even Typescale, this one allow to select a font based on your requirement. Let's say you want to create a website for a banking industry. So if you type banking, it will give you ideal fonts for the banking industry. It will recommend you. But most of the time, it is based on your end users. So you have to, even though we have this kind of a tool, you have to make sure you do research about your end users and understand their needs and background, demographics and everything, and select a font based on their taste. So that is the way to select a typography for your designs. Now let's go through branding guidelines versus style guides. Branding guidelines are clearly defined rules and standards that communicate how your brand should be represented to the world. Branding guidelines help businesses ensure consistency and stands for. Think of it as a brand rule book that centralizes the overall look and feel of your brand identity. As a style guide is a document that UX designer creates to document a growing and ever-evolving set of design guidelines that arise from the design process. So branding guideline is something that, let's say you are trying to launch a new brand and the client came up with the requirement, and then you start off with designing the logo and deciding on the typeface and maybe the color combinations for the design by analyzing the end users. And finally, you came up with a rule book or the branding guideline where you put what is the logo and what is the do's and don'ts with the logo, how they should use the logo. I will show you an example as well. And then the typography, what are the typefaces that they are using, what is the size, what is the ideal size for the typefaces and so on. So you can, after you create this brand, you have the logo, typefaces, color combinations, and everything in place. And whenever there's an opportunity, let's say you created this brand guideline and the brand assets and everything, and we are trying to launch a marketing campaign, uh, something like that. And you can send this branding guideline to these marketing people and tell them that this is what we want in our designs. So they don't change your logo based on their requirement, and you can continuously continue the uniformity of your design as well. So one designer will use your design, otherwise one designer will change the color of your logo. They will change the size of your logo. They might use a different font and so on. So make sure to use a branding guideline when you get a project. So if you want to start from a beginning, when the client asks you to create the logo and decide on the typefaces and everything, as a UX designer, we normally create branding guideline. Okay, style guide is something different. Style guide is a document that UX designer creates to document growing and ever evolving set of design guidelines that arise from the design process. So let's first go to branding guidelines. Let's go to this Coca-Cola Foundation identity. Okay, you can see that they are showing you primary logo is this and secondary horizontal logo is this, and how we can use the logo. And this is the primary color and the secondary colors. The color palette is displayed, RGB value, X value, CMA YK for printing, and all the other values are displayed in the style guide. And also the color bar, different color combinations, gradients, and this is how not to use their colors. So all these are mentioned, and also the typography, the typeface they're using, and what are the text that they should use for regular text, uh, headline, and so on. This is how you should not use their logo. All this documentation is there. If we go to Apple branding guidelines, some of these companies have PDFs, some of them have websites uh, dedicated to branding guidelines as well. So this is the documentation that Apple send into their vendors and the channel authorized resellers, and this is how they should use the logo in the website, the reseller name. Then this is the hierarchy of the design and how not to use logo and all these things. What is minimum size and what should be the padding between the elements and the logo and so on. Everything is mentioned, the typography, and all the things are covered in this particular style guide documentation. And if we take that is actually branding guideline and the style guide, there are some similarities between these two as well. If you go to style guide, more like a design system, we can give this example. So this is actually, I showed you earlier as well, I think. So this is following atomic design principles. So the basic elements are here, and the elements that are created using these basic elements are displaying here. The final designs are in the species section. So in this style guide or the design system, what we do is we create the basic element that after we interview a few users, the requirements from the client or the users can be different. It can be changing, evolving during the time. So what you can do is you can create this kind of a documentation and create all these necessary elements there. So whenever there is a change, you only have to change. Now, let's say they want to change the logo. So if we don't have this kind of a documentation, we might have to go everywhere that the logo is uh, can be seen and edit the logo manually one by one. But in this case, what we can do is we can change the logo by changing the color. Let's say we want to change the main accent color of the logo. So I have a color library as well. So what I can do is I will change the background color of the logo to this one. So it will display like this. So all the designs, even this one will be updated based on the logo, the change I have done. So if I save it, it will do the change. So I'm not going to do this because this is something I can't change right now. Okay, so that is the use of a design system or a style guide. As a UX designer, when you get a new project, always make sure to create a style guide. Otherwise, when there's some changes arise, when there's, let's say, after some time, the team or the client is telling that he liked the previous design. So if you don't have any previous design saved in your computer, it will be a problem. You might have to redo based on the outputs. So always make sure to create a style guide and add looks as well. So it will give you better uh, accessibility to your design libraries, and you can do changes whenever you want. Okay, why a style guide or a branding guideline is important for any product? Number one, it can maintain consistency. So as I mentioned, if you have a blueprint document like branding guidelines or a style guide, when you, let's say you create the brand and you create the logo, you create the typography and everything, and then you leave this company and some other designer came to work. So if you don't have this kind of a documentation in place, this designer might have to redo all the designs, and he might change the design in website or the digital presence of this company, and it will uh, affect the consistency of the designs as well. And another scenario, if you try to outsource your social media designs or anything, you can send this branding guideline or a style guide to your social media manager or someone, the outsourcing company, and ask them to follow the consistent design. So it won't give any uh, lack of consistency if they follow these designs correctly. And number two is defining standards and use. So as the document shows, the Apple document and also the Coca-Cola documents we just refer, they are telling that these are the color combinations that we should use. And this is how we can use their logo. This is the minimum size. And if you document these standards, everyone can follow these standards by referring to this documentation. And it will be easier for the front-end developers to write their CSS and HTML by referring to all the important information and data, find hex codes and colors easily, reuse UI components, SVG files, and quickly find and extract any other assets that may require. So when a UX designer complete these designs and give it to the coder or a front-end developer, they can't directly design all these. Like they are not starting off by create coding for all this. What they do is they are first trying to create these basic elements, the logo icon, all the icons and everything. So if you have this kind of a library of designs, they can easily follow all this and get the codes for this one as from switching on developer mode and get the CSS code and the SVG code if they like, and the gradient color combination. Everything will be there. So it will make front-end developers' lives easier as well if you follow the principles and maintain a style guide and the design system. Will help UX designers to craft responsive layout that fit the brand style. So we covered that part as well. The social media managers can consult the document to use the same exact typeface, color palette, and graphic assets to create a consistent social media feed. Okay, so those are the things that branding guidelines and style guides do. So now we have to do UX those and creating wireframes and so on. So before that, we will do the UX laws and other remaining theory parts next week. So let's go through Figma and try to create something today as well. So Figma had their annual conference, I think it was on Saturday, sorry, Friday or Thursday. So they have launched some new features to their website. So now you can interact with Figma elements like you interact with ChatGPT. If you give right commands, let's say make designs for something, and they will give you some designs as well, generative AI. And also they updated the UI. It won't show up right now because they're rolling out in batches. So right now they're rolling out all these updates to people based in US, and after that they will come to Asia and maybe our country as well. So they have some new features as well. So in this link you can read about what are the new features that they have launched and get up to date about the Figma application as well. So let's head to Figma. Okay. Last week we start off with UI designing with Figma. I introduced you to the Figma layout and we covered some basic components, basic things that we can do in Figma. And also I invited you to play around and get to know about more controls, more functions that we can do using Figma main menu and so on. Okay, today we are going to cover Boolean operations, responsive grid layout, auto layout, components, variants, and responsive designing using Figma. Okay, we did home screen, community, and Figma design file. Boolean operations. These are the main Boolean operations in Figma: union, subtract, intersect, and exclude. So if I show you by example, let's create a shape, give it some color, maybe this color, or this. Let's create another shape, this one, and give it another color, this color. So these are the two colors, two shapes that we are going to use to demonstrate you these four basic operations. Union will create a union of these two elements. So it will take the color of the uppermost element and create a union like this. And if I select subtract selection, it will subtract the uppermost element from the background element and show the remaining part like this. And intersect selection, it will show the intersection but in the color of the uppermost shape. This is the intersection of this particular two elements and it will show it like this. And finally, exclude selection. So it will exclude the intersection part and show the color of uppermost element like it did earlier. So those are the four basic Boolean operations in Figma. And you can flatten selection as well. It will make it a vector, scalable vector like this. So you don't have much operations for individual designs, but you can control the complete vector rather than do changes to the shapes. Next, we have responsive grid layout for desktop, tablet, and mobile. So this is the reason why we use grid layout. Keep space and align design constantly, both horizontally and vertically in all pages. Columns used for horizontal alignment. 12 columns for desktop, 8 for tablet, and 4 for mobile. Container desktop, so those are the sizes for desktop. So if I open a file on Figma and let's say I want to create designs for desktop, tablet, and mobile, all three. So I first create the desktop element. So this is my desktop. Now let's create another one for tablet. And to select this one. The one for mobile phone. So going to use Android large for that. Okay, these are three sizes of screens. So one thing with Figma is you don't have to remember all these sizes, the container desktop sizes. You can just go in here and select whatever the template or the size of the frame that you require. So it is easy. Okay, now let's create a grid layout for each of these elements. 12 for desktop, 8 for tablet, and 4 for mobile screens. So how you can create a grid layout is you can first select the whatever the uh, frame that you want, and we have layout grid right here. So click on this plus icon and it will create a grid like this. So this is not what we want. So we want to change it to columns. So because we are trying to create columns. So in desktop, we need 12 columns. So this is the 12 columns and I need 60 pixels or let's say 20 pixels as cutter for my design. Margin can be 30 pixels. So margin is the margin around these grids. So this one, this is 30 pixels right here, and even here is 30 pixels. So dual column layout is using for desktop, whereas for tablet we can use 8 column layout. So I'm again going here and change this to columns and 8 column, and I want my padding to be 30. This is the tablet. Finally, we are using mobile screen layout grid. Again, going to columns, 4 columns. This to be 30 again. So this is my desktop, phone layout, mobile layout. So when you start doing the designs, what you can do is you can, let's say you want to create some shape or a card. So you make sure to create that card based on these guidelines. So your design should be inside these guidelines. These are uh, left off. So make sure to create this between these guidelines. And then when you get a chance to create another component, you can drag and drop right here. You can see the red color guidelines are showing uh, the alignment as well. So that is also helpful. And the guidelines or the grids are also helpful for you to align them properly and maintain consistency throughout your designs. Okay, next we have auto layout. It makes frames and component to responsive. So I think I did auto layout earlier. So let's uh, go through it again. So if I create this kind of a shapes, say I'm going to create one shape like this, and I'm going to create 6 copies of that. How I can create copies is Control plus D in Windows. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now has 6 rectangles. So I'm going to put them inside a frame. Select all these by dragging and go inside here and select frame selection. And let's name it to auto layout. So you can refer to it later as well. In auto layout, I'm going to go here and switch on this plus icon, and it will show me auto layout like this. So okay, actually I have to create frames, not the shapes. One frame, let's call this item. I need 6 of them. Let's say it don't like uniform with between elements, gap between elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this inside a frame like this. Let's call this auto layout and switch on auto layout, and it will create auto layout like this. If I want to change the direction of this squares, I can give it a vertical layout like this and the horizontal layout. And let's say I want it to be a wrap around some division. I can change it like this and it will wrap around whatever the size I already have. So that is how you can create auto layout by using Figma. So if I show you another example of that, I already did. Second. Yeah. This is a layout I created for one of the online dancing platform. So started off with the mobile design and I have the tablet design and then desktop design. So if I want to change the size of this, so you can see the image and the buttons are changing accordingly. So that is responsive design and I'm using this auto layout, the 4-column auto layout as well. And all the components are changing the sides based on the size of the screen. So it is adapting the size of the screens and changing the image sizes and so on. So you can use the same thing and create responsive designs for your designs as well. And make sure if it is a website to create mobile design first, we call it a mobile first design. So in the mobile first design, what we do is we create basic components, the necessary components there, and put them on a mobile design. So after creating the mobile design, we move on to the tablet and the desktop where we can put more contents on our designs as well. Right. Now let's talk about creating a component. Make reusable elements. That is actually the basic thing about Figma. So by using Figma, what we are doing is we are making the UX designers and coders life easier. So reusable components is one thing that you can do when you do the designs. So let's create a reusable component. Let's create a button. So button is a reusable component that we are going to create. I'm going to put a text here. So this is the button text. I'm going to create a large text so it will be easier for you to follow up. Sign up, and then I'm going to put it inside a frame selection, and then with a main full name button auto layout. Let's give it a background color. I'm going to use gradients because we learned gradient today. Okay, maybe these two colors, and add some horizontal padding, 30 pixels, this one 10 pixels or 15 pixels. This is my button. Add some more padding here. This is the button. Okay, I have questions. So hope we should enable auto layout every time while we creating frames. Not every time, but most of the time you have to create using auto layout because when you try to create a design, let's say for an example, if you add a logo right here, you can't create it auto layout. What you can do is let's create an example. So I'm going to create a logo first. This is logo. So let's say this is my logo, and we have navigation and everything up here. Then I have about. So we can put this inside a frame and create auto layout. It will be like this. So you make sure to create a component by using identically similar elements. For an example, this is our navigation bar. So we are creating a frame and auto layout based on that. So if you have something else here, the image or something, you can create a different auto layout for that. So different auto layouts for different elements or different sections of the screen. Is it clear, Samidu? Cool. Okay, moving on. So we created this button layout right here, and we added it auto layout as well. So in a button, the auto layout is helpful when, let's say, we want to change the button content. We have to use this button somewhere else as well. So the content can be varied. So I'm going to change the contents to uh, open or something. You can see that length of the button is changing based on what is inside as well. So that is the easiest way to do it. That is an advantage of using frames for a button. So button can have few states. So if I visit a website as well, right here, this button is changing when I try to hover over it. So even here, this one is changing. So we are going to create that kind of a button layout from Figma right now. So this is my main button. And I have another state which I call when mouse over, this is the button I want it to be. So I'm going to increase the purple color or the violet color of this one little bit. And even this particular color, I'm going to make it more into red. When users visit our website, this is the default button color. When they try to hover over it, this is the second color. And I will create another one. This is the inactive button color. So just in case if you need any inactive color. So I'm going to change the opacity of this to, let's say 50, right? This one is 50. The inactive button is something that we don't need in our screen. So it is inactive because unless you perform some action, you fill a form. Until you fill a form, it will be inactive. So I'm going to put this 50% as well. So these are the three variants of our buttons. So in order to create a component, what we can do is we select all three. And then we go in here, we have create component, create multiple components, create component set. So we click on create component. So it will create a component like this. So we are going to give it a meaningful name. Let's call it a button. So button right now have three variants: inactive, over, and other one. Okay, that is a component. So that is how you can create a component using Figma. So it won't create three different variants, but component will be created. So how you can access this component is from here. Go to your assets section and your local component will be there. So we can see problem here. So all three buttons will display. So you might have to delete another two if you want to use one of them. So in order to eliminate that, what we do is we don't create a component like that. So I'm going to do all this and let's select this one. And we have option called create multiple components and create component set. So it is kind of similar. I will show you the difference as well. So if we click on create component set, so it will give you this kind of a component with properties and so on. So if I go in here, we have three variants of that component. So let's rename this one to button. And first one is inactive. This one is inactive, and this is who, and this is, let's call it default. You can change the state name, variant name by here. Property one, let's call it state. So button state, first button state is default, second button state is who, third button state is inactive. Okay, now if we go in here, we have local components, these buttons, the assets. So whenever you need this button component in your design, what you can do is you can drag and drop it in somewhere. So if you want to change it state, you can access its properties by referring to this and change this to who or even inactive default. So that is how you can create a reusable component using Figma. Okay, is it clear? Can everyone follow me and do a design? Okay, I can see everyone of you have already done some designs here. A good job. I can see Fatima, Samidu, and Sandali. All right, cool. So let's create reusable component as well. I will create boards for everyone on Figma. Visit the Figma board first. Okay. You can follow my board and do the same thing. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a text. So click on this text element, T letter, and create some text, and let's set the font size to 96 pixel. I'm going to type sign up. You can increase the font size if it is not visible to 96 pixels. Okay, after you type your text in a like button inner text, what we're going to do is we're going to select that particular text and right click on it and go to frame selection. So it will create this kind of a frame. I'm going to rename the frame to button. In order to increase the font size, what you can do is you can select the text, and on right hand side there's an option to increase the font size. We can select 96 pixels or whatever the bigger size you need. Okay, everyone following? The Fatima is good. See, Samindu has to put it inside a frame. Okay, cool. How about Sandali? If you have any questions, if you face any issues, let me know so I can help. This one is good. Something is good. Suddenly, after you create the text, you have to right click on it and put it inside a frame by selecting frame selection. Okay, now rename this frame 4 to a button and your name. You can rename by double click on the frame itself. The frame 4, you can rename by using that. Okay, now we have the button. Now let's give it a background color. In order to give it a background color, what I can do is go to this fill section and click on the plus icon right here. So it will actually add white color as your background color. So I'm going to change it to blue color like this. Or you can use whatever the color you prefer, even a gradient if you can. Not the text color, the button color should be something. You have to select the frame and select the color, not the text. Suddenly, can you click on your frame and then select a color? The uppermost frame. Suddenly, can you hear me? Can you click on your frame name button suddenly? So it will give you the element. Okay. Now change the color from fill. All right, cool. Okay, now we have our buttons created and then we added backgrounds as well. Now I want you to do is click on this auto layout section. On right hand side, we have auto layout. Click on that plus icon. So after that, let's add 30 pixels horizontally and 10 pixels vertically. So we change these two properties, horizontal padding and vertical padding. Okay, let's add some corner radius as well. So in order to do that, go to frame section and we have corner radius option right here. and give it some value around 10 or 15. I'm going to give it 50. So if you change the text, let's say I want to change the text to something else. I'm going to change to get started. So you can see that the frame is adapting the size of the text. So that is why we added auto layout. So it will be responsive as well. All right, let's move on. Now we have our basic element. Now we need two of these, or actually let's create one, only the hover state. So what I want you to do is next to your button, create a copy of that. You can select your button and press Ctrl plus D to create a duplicate. All right, now let's name the first button as default and keep the name and the button as it is. The next one is over, mouse over button. And select your mouse over the hover button and change the color of that. Let's give it little darker accent than the original color. Okay. Suddenly, can you give your hover button some darker accent to differentiate between default and some other color will be great. Okay, cool. Yeah. So next, select two of these buttons, like dragging the area of your two buttons. And then on top, we have create component set. So click on create component set. Like this. Now let's rename the component 1, component 2, component 3 to button and then your name. Create component set is right here. So if you go here, it will display when you have the buttons. Like this. Create component set.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah,
Sir, how, how you create the component? Can you repeat it?
yeah. So if I select Sandali's buttons, so after you selecting, we have an option here. This one, components option. Go in there and click on create component set. Not a section, the second one. You can keep the section as it is. Do the second one. So I will repeat it once more. So I'll delete your section first. Okay. Now the first thing you have to do is select these two buttons. Is it clear? And
Yes, sir.
then go in here and we have this icon. Can you see my mouse hovering?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, click on that arrow icon and we have option called create component set. Click on that. So let me take out your buttons from the section. I think that is the issue. Give me 1 second. Okay, we can delete this section. Now follow the instructions. All right, now rename it to button and then new name. Everyone else is good. You can rename by clicking on the component itself. Double click on that, so it will give you an option to rename. Like this. If I go in here and double click, it will allow me to rename. Okay, cool. Now what I'm going to do is we have properties here in the properties section, the property 1 and property 2. So in the properties where it says property 1, I'm going to rename it to state because I want to display button states, not the property 1, property 2. The generic names should go. So let's select that and change this to state. The property should be state. The property 1 should be state. Yeah, components and component sets. I think Samidu created a component, not a component set. So as I displayed earlier in my example, when I created the buttons, where is it? So component set will give you variants, whereas component will only give you these three components as a one component. So we actually in a button, we need variants. We need default state, hover state, and maybe inactive state. So in that case, we have to create component set. So component sets will allow you to create variants, whereas component will only create a component where you don't have any variants or controls, further controls. So is it clear, Samindu? Okay. You can change it right now, Samindu. I think you have to recreate the buttons and do. Maybe you can follow the recording and do it again as well. Or if you have time, you can create another two buttons. So we can wait. You can quickly create two buttons following the process. Okay, state is good. Okay. And the next thing I want you to do is, so when you select your main component, I'm selecting button Savinder and everyone else select their main component. Next to properties, we have these values. I can see default button and so on. So click on that. So these are the two values, two variants of my buttons. So you can see. So I want you to rename them. The first one should be only default. So you have to remove the name part. Next one is hover. So right now my button, I have states default and hover. You have to click on this edit property icon, like this, and then double click on this and rename. Suddenly click on this edit property button and rename these two. All right. Now, if you want to access your elements after you make the changes, you have to go to this asset section. So that is where our components are. So click on asset section and it will show everyone's components. So Samidu created a component, not a component set. That is why it is showing all the components that it created, don't have any variants. So that is also a good example of how to use correct component, correct commands in your designs. So if we don't have any variants, if it is only a text or something like that, we can just use a component. But whereas in the buttons case, we have variants. So you can see the button is here, the my button is this one, and it shows how many variants it has on right side top. I have two variants. So what I'm going to do is I can whenever I do the design, I can drag this and drop it into my design. So this is my button. I got it from the asset section. So Fatima and Sandali, you can follow the same thing. And Samindu, you can use my design that I just pasted and follow the remaining. So you can redo it later. Okay, this is the component. Now you can see the component. When you click on your pasted component, it has controls. On right hand side, we can change the state. Right now it is on default state. You can change to hover. If there's any more states, you can change to whatever the state you like as well. All right. Now let's see how we can connect these two together in a Figma prototype. In order to do that, what we can do is we first select the button that you want to connect. Select the first default button in your button selection. When it is done, go to prototype section. Next to design and click on this plus icon in interactions. And we have options called on tab, while hovering, while pressing, and so on. So this is actually we need it to change color during hovering. So select the while hovering option from here. Okay. Then we have a drop down here. We have a set variable option. So we have two variables. So while hovering, we are changing the state of the variable to the second one, the hovering one. So click on set variable. All right. So let's, you're not allowing it right here. Okay. While hovering, click on this and change to, click the second option. I'm sorry, change set variable is not working on the free version. Click on change to, and from the state option, click on hover. And you can select the animation as well. I'm going to give it a smart animate. So what it will do is when you play the prototype, let's play it right in here, preview. Let's say I have this button pasted in this. When I play the prototype, you can see that hovering effect is working. Whenever the prototype is, someone is hovering over it, the states of the button is changing. So you can accomplish it by following the instructions. So if you, okay, Fatima, design is good. Suddenly, so I will do it again. So the first thing you have to do is select the first button, and then I'm going to remove this, so it will be easier. Select the first button on your prototype, on your component, and then click the interactions, the plus icon right here. And then we have an option called on tap on drag while hovering. Select while hovering, and then change the state to hover. So that is what I need from you. And in order to make it like see it in your design, uh, create an artboard with the size of your design and drag and drop your button right there, and click on this flow starting point, the button, and it will get it as a flow starting point. Otherwise it will show other flows in the section. So let's click on this particular button right here, the play button, and it will show up our button. So that is how you can create buttons with many states in Figma design. So you can apply the same thing in any other elements as well. Let's say you want to appear a picture. You want to change the state of a picture when you want to, when you're hovering over it. So you can increase the opacity of your picture when someone hovering over it. So that is how you can apply the same thing in any other elements of your designs. So do you have any questions regarding the exercise, Fatima? Is it clear or do you need more clarification? How about Samindu? Sandali, how about you?
So can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Can you speak a little bit louder? It will be great.
Also, when I click that get start button that pasted by user,
Yeah.
I cannot view the components under the.
Okay. Let me replace this again. So be easier. So use this one. Can you see the latest one?
Yes.
Okay, I will rename it to something. Now I'm going to remove this so you can do it later. Okay. Can you see the properties right now?
Yes.
Okay. So do the prototyping part. So the first thing you have to do is select your first element, then head to prototype section, go to interactions and select while hovering, and from there change to hover. So that is how you can create a move button. Okay, Sandali, yeah, go ahead, Samidu.
All clear, sir.
Okay, how about Fatima? How to preview the button? Can you repeat it? Okay, so preview button. This is how we can do it. I'm going to remove this. Let's create another frame. And then we are going to asset section and drag and drop the button we have created. So this is my button. I'm going to drag it and drop right here. And then I'm going to select the frame, this one, and then head to the prototype. In the prototype, we have a flow starting point option. Click on this plus icon right here. And let's name it our name. I'm going to name it as Savinder. And then when you click on this particular play button, it will appear in a form, the prototype. Is it clear? Okay. All right, so from the next week onwards, let's go back to our presentation. So we talked about components, variants, responsive designing by using auto layout. So those are the basic things that Figma we can cover, and we are going to discuss more advanced Figma features from next week. And also we are going to cover UX laws, then creating wireframes next week as well. And next week I will give you instructions or the requirement for your capstone project, which you have to submit in the 5th week. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to complete the theory part, the UX research and the wireframes before the interval. And then we are going to go through our project requirement, and you can ask questions about the requirement and the deliverables as well if you don't understand. And finally, we are going to create a similar application that I'm mentioning in the research or the capstone project, where you can get an idea about how to approach this kind of a project. You can work on this kind of a project. And finally, we do some advanced Figma practicals by referring to this project guidelines. So that is the plan for next week. In the meantime, I invite you to refer to this video recording and do the practicals again, and try to create some other components, that reusable components like images or some cards or something like that. Or you can repeat, like you can create this design that you already did using reusable components, buttons, and so on. And you can replace these static components with those reusable components. So that is what you have to do by next week. So let's meet next week at 9 a.m. If you have any questions regarding Figma practicals or anything, you can ask now, or you can send a message on WhatsApp. Everything clear? Samidu? Okay. All right. So let's meet next week at 9 a.m. Have a nice day then. Bye bye.